You are listening to the Wealth Formula Podcast with Buck Joffrey. Get ready to change your life.
Welcome, everybody. This is Buck Joffrey with the Wealth Formula Podcast, coming to you from Montecito, California, the last podcast of the 2024 year. Before I begin, let me just remind you, if you are interested in potentially getting off the sidelines and potentially trying to look at some opportunities that might be coming through the pipeline over the next year or two, make sure you get yourself on the Wealth Formula accredited investor list, the Investor Club, which is at wealthformula.com. Wealthformula.com also offers a number of other resources. You may want to go check that out for yourself. With that, let me transition into today's show. The show features an interview with Robert Kiyosaki. Now, as the new year approaches, I've become a bit reflective. I'm not really the kind of guy who has heroes, nor do I fawn over celebrities. It's just not who I am. However, there is one person in this world who I credit with changing really the course of my adult life, and that is Robert Kiyosaki. And I've had the privilege of meeting Robert multiple times. He's been on the show a bunch of times as well at this point. But I've also had a number of meaningful private conversations with him that are actually very different from anything that I experience on these podcasts or, in any of his public forum type situations. That's been probably some of the most exciting encounters I've had with him. But the real impact he's made on me really was through his book, Cashflow Quadrant. That is a book that I highly recommend everyone read who's in this sort of high-paid professional world. And I will say that had I not read that book, I doubt I would have ever started this podcast. Honestly, I'd probably be an academic surgeon somewhere with little interest in the economy or investing. And why do I say that? Because that's what I was before I read Cashflow Quadrant. I read it by accident because I was on my honeymoon right after residency. I got married and I was on my honeymoon in Mexico in Puerto Vallarta. And at that time in my life, I had zero interest in personal finance. And I was not, the idea of alternative assets, all this stuff is not stuff I really thought about. But when I read that book on the way back to the United States, it was something interesting. It was so basic, but so revealing about the way the world works and how entrepreneurs fit into it. Anyway, it was like a lightning bolt for me. Maybe it will for you. Maybe it won't. But I would highly recommend that you at least read it, Cashflow Quadrant. What's truly remarkable is the incredible impact Robert's books have had on so many people. His teachings, especially the number one selling financial book of all time that he wrote, which is called Rich Dad, Poor Dad, has been really like a game changer for countless individuals worldwide. Sparking a revolution at the individual level of financial thinking, the idea that you don't have to necessarily listen to Wall Street and that there's another way of thinking. Robert made that acceptable and something that people could actually aspire to. For me, it was his emphasis on building businesses and creating assets that was really the wake-up call. I've heard numerous stories of people leaving traditional careers who, because of his books or inspired by what he's had to say, have ventured into entrepreneurship, or built successful real estate portfolios, or overcome, long-held limiting beliefs about money and success. And it's really astounding how his teachings have really ignited a wave of financial literacy and entrepreneurial spirit. But there's something else about him now, too, which is something that I didn't necessarily appreciate as much when I first discovered him 16, 17 years ago. And that is, as a middle-aged guy now, I find something about Robert particularly inspirational, which is the fact that he published Rich Dad, Poor Dad, the seminal book of, his career, the thing that launched him into, frankly, being influencer of any kind, one of the largest influencers now. But that happened at the age of 50 for him. And that's really a powerful reminder, again, that it's never too late to learn, to grow, to achieve financial success. That is something you may want to remember next time you have that thought in your head that you're too old, maybe you missed your chance at it. I mean, there's always ways to pivot. right? There's always ways to pivot, do something different. I'm constantly in that space right now. And I do sometimes get into the trap of thinking, well, maybe I'm too old for big changes at this point, but I have to catch myself and think of guys like Robert who did big things like, after 50. So anyway, if you haven't already, I urge you to pick up a copy of Cashflow Quadrant, experience it for yourself. It might just change your life as it did mine, or, give it to your kids or something like that. If they're older kids or whatever, get them thinking in a certain way early on. In the meantime, after these messages, we will have an interview with Robert Kiyosaki.
Wealth formula banking is an ingenious concept powered by whole life insurance. But instead of acting just as a safety net, the strategy supercharges your investments. First, you create a personal financial reservoir that grows at a compounding interest rate, much higher than any bank savings account. As your money accumulates, you borrow from your own bank to invest in other cash flowing investments. Here's the key. Even though you've borrowed money at a simple interest rate, your insurance company keeps paying you compound interest on that money, even though you've borrowed it. Net result, you make money in two places at the same time. That's why your investments get supercharged. This isn't a new technique. It's a refined strategy used by some of the wealthiest families in history, and it uses century-old, rock-solid insurance companies as its backbone. Turbocharge your investments. Visit wealthformulabanking.com. Again, that's wealthformulabanking.com.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. Today, my guest on Wealth Formula Podcast, well, he's no stranger to the show. He's been on multiple times over the years. It's Robert Kiyosaki. Robert is the number one financial selling author of all time. He is also, quite frankly, the inspiration behind my own entrepreneurial life after becoming a physician and then figuring out that I was actually an entrepreneur. The author, again, of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. For me, Cashflow Quadrant was one of the big ones. Robert, welcome back to Wealth Formula Podcast.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I was just saying how much I enjoy your program. I forget who you had on, but it was in depth, which is what I liked.
Yeah, that's what we try to do here. Trying to get, relatively ordinary people. Of course, a lot of our listeners are physicians or business people and all that, but they don't teach us those kinds of things, even though we get our MDs, we get our JDs, but we have no idea what's going on in the financial world. So it's kind of nice to get a secondary training on that. But of course, that's always been your dedication, is financial education. And, a lot has happened since we last spoke. I think the last time we spoke actually was during COVID. And, it was before hyperinflation. It was before everything that happened during that period of time and the craziness. And since then, of course, your friend Donald Trump has been reelected. Just would love to get your thoughts on where we are in the economy and what your thoughts are with the administration moving forward.
Well, I think he's more savvy. The board, the people he's hiring and all that, they're young, they're diverse, and they're not yes men. So I think he's doing a fantastic job. But I feel for him. This is probably the worst economy in America's history. So and too many people think he can save them. We got to save ourselves first.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
What do you what makes the economy this time worse than, say, 2008, 2009, or the 90s or the 80s when hyperinflation? What do you think are the unique elements of this economy that makes it so bad?
Well, it goes back to a thing called Gresham's Law. And Gresham's Law states when bad money enters the system, good money goes into hiding. So when this is a 1964 Kennedy $50. Okay. So that was 50 cents. And this is a $10 million Zimbabwe dollar. And generally when I'm speaking to audiences, or I was at Safeway the other day, and I held this up and I held a $10 bill up, US $10. And I said, which one would you rather have? They all go for the $10. But the silver is worth more.
Yeah.
And what I realized as a young man, I was in high school at the time, 64, poor people don't know what money is.
Sure.
They're clueless. So this was 65. It turned into copper. And then 71, as you know, Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard. But that's where it started. And then you have these cartoons called, this guy Ben Bernanke, they gave him a PhD. I mean, Nobel Prize. They gave that guy the Nobel Prize when they should have shot him at dawn. do you know what I mean? He destroyed the economy.
Yeah.
That PhD from Princeton. I really, you should read this book here. This book is When Money Destroys Nations by my friend Philip Haslam. And I was in Zimbabwe when Zimbabwe crashed. So this is a Zimbabwe dollar. Well, it's the same thing. It's the trouble with these fucking PhDs. They don't read or study. They don't know that there's this stuff, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And we're doing the same mistake Zimbabwe's doing.
Yeah. Well, fortunately,
What's
it looks
wrong
like
with it?
we've got a bunch of entrepreneurs coming in, which is a little different, right? I mean, to me, that is this Trump 2.0 administration. That's what I really like about it, because I don't know if Donald Trump was prepared for the presidency before, but this time I think he clearly knows what he wants to do. And getting guys like Elon, getting guys like Ramaswamy. And these guys, to me, it sounds like, as a business guy myself, this is exactly what you would want to do with a system that is absolutely broken.
Yeah. And the trouble is, do you know what I mean? Fixing it is going to cause more pain. So I'm afraid they're going to blame Trump. This is my book with him, the Midas touch.
Yeah.
And he's a good man, but they're going to blame him for what's already been started way back when. And this is the biggest thing I see coming up from, this is who stole my pension. And I don't, I don't like Wall Street either.
Yeah.
So I don't need them. I don't use them. I have no ETFs.
Right.
I have no mutual funds. I have no stocks. I'm a pure real estate guy.
Sure.
And I save my money in Bitcoin. So that's how hardcore. And I own gold mines. I'm going to the Vancouver Resource Investment Conference in January, but I'm looking for a new silver mine. So that's why I go to Vancouver in January, the VRIC. And I am a hardcore entrepreneur. I'm looking for another entrepreneur who knows what they're doing in silver. And I bought a gold mine there 2 years ago. I took it public on the New York Stock Exchange. So I own stocks, but I take them public.
Right.
I don't buy somebody else's company.
Yeah, you own companies and then you take them public, which is a little bit different. Curiously, you mentioned that you save your money in Bitcoin. I think, I remember years back hearing you say that you saved your money in gold. So is there a pivot there?
Yeah, I still have. I own, not to brag, tons of gold. I've been saving. I started back here in 1964. This is a $50 pure silver. 1964. Then it went to copper in 65. That was Gresham's law. Gresham's law says when bad money enters the system, real money goes into hiding. So as a kid, I'm like 18 years old going, I better get my hands as much of this as possible, silver. So I also own tons of silver. I own silver mines. I'm pretty hardcore. I also own oil wells. I don't own oil stock.
Sure.
And I own cattle because you have to eat cattle. But I don't kill my cattle. I take the semen from them. They're Wagyu cattle. So we sell semen. So I do everything because I don't trust this.
Yeah.
Our dollar is as corrupt as it gets.
Yeah. So Bitcoin is relatively, so it's created 2009. What convinced you that this is actually a real thing? I remember for me, it was, I kept hearing about Bitcoin and a lot of people were making fun of it. I remember I still hold Peter Schiff responsible for my not getting involved with Bitcoin for years because he used to make fun of it constantly. And I believed it. What was your turning point on this?
Peter Schiff would sell his mother, you know that. So, he and I are quasi friends, There's a real estate guy's cruise. I'm a real estate guy. He's a gold guy.
Right.
So I go on the cruise with Peter, and he's trying to hawk me his gold cufflinks. I said, Peter, why the fuck would I buy your gold cufflinks? because they're gold. I said, how liquid are they? I'd have to have them appraised and all this. And, you know, I mean, it's not been worth it.
Yeah.
But he'll talk his book, as you know. And sometimes he talks too much. He's not a friend of mine, but I go after him also.
Yeah, sure.
I'm on stage and I'm a real estate guy. I have debt. I like debt.
Right.
And then he attacks debt. I'm going, are you kidding me? The dollar is debt. Don't you know that?
Yeah.
You know, the only reason the dollar comes into existence is somebody has to borrow it.
Right.
If he knew his money, he'd know what we're talking about. And then this Dave Ramsey lived debt free. I'm going, oh, you're going to be kidding me.
Yeah.
So you got to choose who you listen to.
Yeah. I think that's the moral of the story for me. When I listen to Peter talking so negatively about Bitcoin, what do you think of Bitcoin? Like, I think you're very philosophical on the way you approach these things, very logical, I should say. What gives Bitcoin its value?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a momentum play. You know that.
Yeah.
You know, as long as people believe, they'll keep buying it. So I drank the Kool-Aid too. I said, okay. But as you know, if you're in any kind of a market, you have to have an entry and an exit.
That's right.
So my exit is $500,000.
Yeah.
I'm in it. I started buying at 6,000.
Yeah.
So I'm way deep into the money.
Yeah.
And you know, if it crashes tomorrow, let's say it drops to $60, I'm still in the money.
You know, it's funny. I also bought at 6,000, and my sell on Bitcoin, I'm thinking approximately 800,000 or 900,000, because that would put it at a market cap similar to gold. Right now, it's about 2 trillion. Gold is.
I've heard that argument also, but
yeah,
you shouldn't ask me about Bitcoin because I barely, you know.
Yeah, right.
I'm really obsolete. But I said this is another book. This is my records book, Money GPT, and this is AI's effect on the banking system. That's, you know, Records is a friend of mine. He sends me this book. He says, now he has something really big to worry about. It's AI that's the danger.
Yep.
Everybody's all high on AI, you know, I'm going.
Yeah. What's your feelings on AI? I'm curious because I actually talked to Jim about that book as well and some of his concerns. What are you concerned about?
Well, it's based on AI.
Yeah.
And then, you know, the banks are now failing. Like, what was it? Silvergate or Silicon Valley Bank.
Yeah. Silvergate. I think you're right.
Fucking banking crash in history. And the news didn't cover it because Oprah and Bezos and Zuckerberg are all in it. They got hammered, man. Yeah. But the problem isn't AI. The problem is the bond market's going bad. And, you know, the thing I don't like about financial planners, I mean, you want to be a financial planners, you know, that's fine if you want to do that. But I remember when I was just starting out in the 70s, these financial planners were telling me it's safe as a U.S. bond. I said, you're full of shit. You know, if you trust the U.S. government, you're more stupid than I think you are. Because I had 74, I just came back from Vietnam. I flew these things in Vietnam, you know. It's called a helicopter gunship. They killed a lot of people out there in the name of Jesus. We're killing communists for Christ out there.
Yeah.
That's the U.S. Marines, you know.
Yep.
And I said, my country is lying to me so much. I couldn't believe how much they lied to us. So when I came back from Vietnam, now it's 1974. By the way, that's when this pension thing, the 401k started. So that's how old I am. I remember that stuff. I'm listening to all this. I just don't trust my government, man. And I don't trust Biden. He and Kamala, I mean, they're the biggest crooks I've ever seen in my whole life. But almost as big as Hillary and Bill, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, and Trump, as you know, he doesn't have to steal. He's already rich.
Sure.
But Biden used the Department of Justice to go after him.
Yeah.
That is what Biden and Kamala have done is criminal. You know, Trump puts the wall up, they take the wall down. Watch what they do. Biden's first act. Everybody talks about January 6th. It's not January 6th that was bad. The first act Biden did was he cut the Keystone pipeline that runs from Canada to the Gulf of Mexico. The day he cut, that was just before January 6th. When he cut that pipeline, the price of oil went from $30 a barrel to $130 a barrel. Inflation went through the roof, and it destroyed the middle class. Biden and Kamala are trying to destroy the middle class. That's what they're trying to do. And then they want you to vote Democratic. I don't care who you vote for, but watch what they do, not what they say. And they took the wall down. Thousands of criminals came across the border, and they keep the thing open. Now Kamala's going to run for governor of California.
I don't think she's going to win.
Talk about exodus, man.
Yeah. I don't even think she's going to win out here. I'm in California, and she didn't perform particularly well out here. Usually the Democrats crush it in these presidential elections, and she actually didn't perform particularly well either.
A bigger crook of all of them is Obama.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not Republican or Democrat.
Yeah.
I watch what they do, not what they say. It's very simple. Trump put the wall up. Biden took the wall down. If you can't see that, then you can't say anything.
Yeah, yeah. The challenges that Trump has are significant, and some of the policies that he's suggested, I don't know if they're real or if they are leverage. For example, the idea of tariffs. Tariffs theoretically would increase inflation. Do you think Trump will actually increase the number of tariffs, or do you think that's more of a bat that he's kind of wielding as a threat?
Have you seen Trump's buildings in New York City?
Yeah.
You have all of them along West Side Drive.
No, I haven't seen all of them, but I've seen some of them.
He's a good friend of mine.
Yeah.
You have to carry a big stick to get through all that building. So he's just, before he even takes office in January, he's already pounding on the table telling Xi Jinping, whatever his name is, I'm coming after you.
Yep.
He's talking his book, as you say. He's going to kick ass. So he's letting the world know me. What did he tell Trudeau from Canada? He should be a governor of one of our states or something.
Oh, he did.
I like Trump.
I didn't hear that. I didn't hear that.
I was in a meeting with him, when we're writing this book here, and Chris Christie walks in, the governor of New Jersey. Chris has had one too many bagels, and Trump looks up at him and says, "Hey, Chris, lost a few pounds, huh?" The whole room just cracked up, like that. And if you can't take his jokes and all that, you should just grow up.
Yeah. He's
absolutely funny as hell.
Yeah. He certainly is.
His biggest problem is $37 trillion in debt.
Well, that's where I was going to go with this, because listen, I think a lot of people, including myself, are eager for this Trump effect. The entrepreneurs coming in, cleaning house. Trump, maybe try to get rid of some regulations, clean up the tax code a little bit, probably help a lot of us, frankly, on the tax code. But a lot of the policies that are good for, say, me, especially, or you, obviously, potentially are inflationary as well, right? Cutting taxes, that kind of thing. Are you concerned about that? I did have a gentleman on the show recently who talked about, the concern about that sort of runaway debt. It seems to me, Robert, that we talk about debt, but we don't really, I think in America, we don't really think of it as something that really affects us. This is a problem. This is a kind of thing that happens in Argentina or Zimbabwe or something like that. And I think this guy was pretty good. And what he said is what you're going to get is higher interest rates, net. That is what's going to happen. Extremely high interest rates. Do you feel like that is is that a byproduct? Is that a risk of a hot economy that Trump could bring?
I mean, it's all bullshit. Let me give you some numbers. I just look at the numbers, okay?
Mm-hmm.
$1 trillion. If you spent $1 a second, how long would it take you to spend $1 trillion? $1 a second. How long would it take you to spend $1 trillion? 31,668 years. 31,668 years. And we're printing $1 trillion every 90 days.
Right.
I mean, you don't have to go to Sunday school to understand that one. Do you know what I mean? And American people are so fucking stupid. They actually care what Biden thinks or what Kamala's wearing or what Trump is wearing or who he's screwing and all this stuff. Oh, my God. And as Biden weaponizes the Department of Justice, he goes after, I'm a real estate guy like Trump. That's why we're friends. Everything Trump did was legal. But this guy, Biden and Kamala, they should send him to jail. I'm not Republican or Democrat.
Sure.
I watch what a person does, not what they say. I'm a U.S. Marine. I didn't care what school he went to. My only question I had for my fellow Marines was, can you kill somebody?
Right.
If you can't kill them, I don't want to be around you. 31,688 years to pay off $1 trillion at $1 a second. 31,688 years to pay off $1 a second for $1 trillion. We're finished.
So I guess my question is, though, do you think that
this book here is called When Money Destroys Nations? It's about this thing here called the Zim dollar. You guys should read this book here.
Yeah, absolutely. Can Trump do anything? Would anything that Trump or Elon them do actually reverse this train to,
31,688 years, and they're printing $1 trillion every 90 days or something like that.
Yeah.
We're a train wreck.
Yeah. So cutting 500 billion from Doge is not going to mean anything.
31,668 years, $1 a second.
Makes sense.
And
it just comes down to that, right?
We're adding $1 trillion every 90 days. We're in debt $37 trillion with the biggest debtor nation in world history.
Let's talk about real estate. You're a real estate guy. Kind of an unusual market the last couple of years where, we had extremely low interest rates. There was a lot of froth in the market and interest rates shot up, but a lot of properties lost value, but the market's really not moving. What do you think is going to happen with the real estate market? What are you doing right now, I guess is a better question.
It's going to crash.
Yeah.
And look at Manhattan. It's called office buildings are empty. The U.S. economy is crashing. I don't know if you guys even know that.
Yeah.
We have today more unemployment than ever before, and we don't talk about it. That's the problem. And Trump can't fix it. So that's why he has to carry a big stick and pound on Xi Jinping. And then he has, what's his name, Putin in Ukraine. And he has Hezbollah and Hamas. He's got a lot of problems, man.
Yeah.
But we're $37 trillion in debt, the biggest debtor nation in world history. And the Chinese have stopped buying our bonds.
So this is a crash, and obviously there's a significant, we've certainly bought some property in the space, have lost a lot of value. Would you encourage people to be buying right now?
I'm waiting for the crash.
You don't feel like the market's crashed yet? The real estate market? No. Okay. So you're saying this is just the beginning, what we've experienced already.
Well, you keep your powder dry right now.
Yeah.
There's going to be some yelling and some screaming, Britick. Look, some of the most expensive real estate in the world, San Francisco, is underwater.
Right.
It's gone. New York is gone. So, what are you going to do out there? You're going to rush in and buy because your realtor says it's a good deal?
Yeah.
You got to be a little bit smarter than that. And that's why Dave Ramsey, he says, live debt free. I'm $1.2 billion in debt. How else do you think I get ahead? I just borrow money. But the average person should not do that.
Yeah. That's a very good point too. And, maybe that's worth explaining to people why debt is good in the sense that, you're printing your own money, right? Effectively. Could you explain how that works?
No, it depends on what you acquire with it.
Right.
If I told you right now to borrow $1 million and I'd sell you 1 million Bitcoin for $1 each, would you do it? Oh, I do it all day long. $1 per Bitcoin. You got to know the deal. That's all.
Yeah.
So if I'm selling you Bitcoin today is 107,000.
Mm-hmm.
I want to sell you 1 million of them for $1 each.
Oh yeah.
No, I'm not going to touch it because it's Bitcoin.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to give you the absurdity of it all.
Yeah.
I look at Trump wrote a book called Art of the Deal. And if you've ever been up in this Upper West Side, he owns a whole Upper West Side.
Right.
Man, I couldn't even get a contractor to renovate a condo. How does he get people to build a building? He's a tough negotiator.
Yeah, especially in New York.
It's everywhere, man.
Yeah.
Anytime you have to deal with bureaucracy. Do you know how I get my building permits through?
I don't know. In Chicago, we had to pay people. Yeah, exactly. You'd write a check.
It's called campaign contributions.
Yeah. Campaign contributions. We used to in Chicago, if we had some local permit stuff to do, there would be retired bureaucrats who would set up little consulting offices and they would help you get your permits through. And basically the way they would do it is help you get to the front of the line by calling their friends. So
it's the same old. Nothing's changed.
Yeah.
Nothing's changed. We're the biggest debtor nation in history. Unemployment is going through the roof. Our office buildings are crashing. So I feel for Trump. I mean, he's a good man. I'm glad he's in, but I feel for him. I worry about him.
In the next few years, I guess the question, I think a lot of people listening, we've got Robert Kiyosaki on here. What would you tell a retail investor who's trying to figure out the path forward? Obviously, you said real estate, wait for a crash right now. You're not really you don't think it's a good time necessarily to buy. Would you pretty much be, saving money in Bitcoin then and gold?
No, I'm just waiting for the crash.
Right.
Your profit is made when you buy, not when you sell.
Right.
So I think we're heading into a depression personally. The last depression was 1929 to 1954, 25 years. I think it's going to be this bad. But that's why I own oil. We'll still burn oil. I own cattle because we'll still eat.
Yeah.
I just buy people are going to use. The tampons will still be in use. Who's that guy? Who is Tim Waltz, Kamala's tampon?
Yeah.
Tim. I mean, he did more for tampon sales than the guy I know. Jesus Christ. It's a joke. It's a joke. He should join the Marine Corps because he was an Army guy. And he was missing in action. He was a sergeant major. He was missing in action. Marines would not put up with that bullshit, man.
Oh, I didn't hear about that one, but I did hear about a lot of his, where he was claimed to be. He was like Forrest Gump, sort of, right? Like he sort of ended up in every major world event.
Yeah.
Doing it. Anyway, well, listen, Robert, it's been great catching up with you again. And, looking forward. Do you have any book? Are you writing any books right now?
Well, I would recommend Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It's still.
Yeah.
I was in Uzbekistan just now, and they were Soviet not too long ago. But their university, they built whole rooms to my Cashflow board game because they realized games are better teachers than teachers. Mm-hmm. I learned everything playing Monopoly, 4 greenhouses, 1031, Red Hotel.
Right.
I own Red Hotels today.
Right.
But Maria Montessori, the Montessori school system, said it best. What the hand does, the mind remembers. And so these teachers who are lecturing, as you know, most of them haven't done shit. Most of these professors are full of shit. And I'd rather go listen to somebody who's, be on air, guys who have done something.
Yeah.
But I think we're in serious trouble because Trump's going to do away with the Department of Education. Oh my God. God bless him. God bless him. But the more teachers we have, the worse our academics go.
Yeah.
Teachers are the worst people on earth. My poor dad was a teacher. And these guys are the most arrogant SOBs going, I have a PhD. I go, so what? I have money. I have a PhD.
Yeah.
And you know what PhD stands for? Poor, helpless, and desperate.
Well, with that being said, the book that I would recommend of yours is actually, it was the first book I read of yours, Robert, was actually the Cashflow Quadrant. And I think,
thank you.
And that
it defines you, doesn't it?
It sure does. It really, I had just finished my surgical residency actually when I read that, and it completely changed what I did with my life. But I would highly encourage, particularly those who are listening to this show to listen, to read Cashflow Quadrant as well, because it really was for me it was just an eye opener. I just didn't even know that a different world of exists. And so I thank you again for writing that.
And what I commend you on is every time I watch your podcast, you have depth. You have depth. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You actually go deeper than the skin. And a lot of these podcasters are young kids. They know the fact, the GDP did this, and inverse repo market, and this, they know all the terms. They haven't done anything.
Right.
I want somebody who's at least got some lashes across their back.
Those I have. Thank you so much, Robert.
Thank you, man. Good luck to you, man. Doing a great job.
You make a lot of money but are still worried about retirement. Maybe you didn't start earning until your 30s and now you're trying to catch up. And meanwhile, you've got a mortgage and private school to pay for and you feel like you're getting farther and farther behind. Good news. If you need to catch up on retirement, check out a program put out by some of the oldest and most prestigious life insurance companies in the world. It's called Wealth Accelerator. It can help you amplify your returns quickly, protect your money from creditors, and provide financial protection to your family if something happens to you. The concepts here are used by some of the wealthiest families in the world, and there's no reason why they can't be used by you. Check it out for yourself by going to wealthformulabanking.com. Again, that's wealthformulabanking.com.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. Hope you enjoyed it. Now, love him or hate him, agree with him, disagree with him, Robert has done a tremendous amount for a lot of entrepreneurs out there. And all I'm going to say is, if you haven't read Cashflow Quadrant, you'll see what I mean. And maybe it will be less impactful for you because you listen to this podcast and you hear me ultimately sort of carrying on a torch for a lot of the simple principles that Robert taught in that book. It is a really fun read too. It's entertaining. Robert's a very good writer. Anyway, Happy New Year to you. And I will catch up with you next week is the first official launch show in 2025. This is Buck Joffrey signing off.
Thank you for listening to the Wealth Formula Podcast. Visit us on the web at wealthformula.com. The information contained in this podcast are opinions, not fact. As always, consult your own financial team before making any investment. See you next time.